I have yet to talk to a family member where the parent in question has been like, you know what? I really think I might have dementia and I think I need to go in for cognitive testing. And then I think I need to figure out what it looks like for me to not live independently because I'm not safe. And here are the car keys. Okay, I'm gonna take a deep breath because I've tried to film this video 3 times now, and I knew it would be emotional for me and it would be a bit of a struggle, but I really want to get through your questions. So, hey, I'm Jen. My mom has mixed dementia. She is living in a memory care unit just about 10 minutes away from me. We recently placed her on hospice, and today I am answering your questions about that journey. So I tried to script this video and I just could not get my thoughts in a straight line. So I did a YouTube post and I asked on Instagram, and you all asked so many great questions. I'm not going to answer them in any particular order, and I'm also not going to give a full backstory on mom because I've done the other videos. You're welcome to go back and watch those, but also the reason I've had to film this intro 4 times is I don't know how to share the entire journey in just a couple of sentences. So we're just going to jump right into the questions, and hopefully that will all will be revealed as I answer these questions. Also, I'm really glad you're here. I do stuff about travel, home organization, and yes, I talk about our journey with my mom. So I would love for you to subscribe. It's free and it really helps me out here on YouTube. Okay, so this first question is, if you haven't already talked about this, can you talk about the signs that you noticed about your mom going into her dementia journey? My mom is 84 and she's getting more forgetful about basic things. And so I'm just kind of wondering what that looks like, if you don't mind sharing. So whether or not you have a dementia diagnosis, in my view, is less important, honestly, than whether or not they are safe living alone. So instead of asking, is this just old age or is this dementia? I think you need to ask, is she safe living independently? And you need to be looking for things like, obviously kitchen accidents, driving incidences. There was a very serious driving incident with mom. That's how we knew that she wasn't safe to drive anymore. There was, an incident with hard-boiled eggs being left on the stove and a potential fire. There were all those sorts of things. Thankfully for us, there wasn't a medical incident. A lot of times you'll see someone have a really bad fall or have some kind of poisoning incident where I had no idea when we started this journey that poisoning is a very major concern for people with dementia. Is she just forgetful or is she in the early stages of dementia? It doesn't really matter in that phase. I think in that phase where you're still like questioning, I'm assuming from your question that she's still capable of living on her own, but I think you have to start there. Is she safe to drive? Is she safe living on her own? Can she still be independent? Because dementia diagnosis or not, there will come a point for most of us where we cannot live independently. And everyone wants to act like that's never going to happen, but that is going to happen. As far as how do you tell dementia from just normal aging and forgetfulness, the best explanation I ever heard was, if you can't find your keys, that's just forgetting your keys. If you can't remember what a key is for, that might be dementia. And I also love to tell people, you're going to know. Like, there is no universe where this just sneaks up on you all of a sudden and you weren't paying attention. If you are spending time with this person, they can mask for a long time. I think, if I'm being honest, the first time I noticed a bit of strangeness with my mom was back in 2019. I went on a 10-day Viking cruise with her. We had the best time. I'm so glad that we did it, especially looking back, because it was her last major trip. But I noticed a few strange things. She seemed to be disoriented very easily. She was very stressed out, things that wouldn't normally stress her out. And she was really covering, looking back, for a lot of things. But you will 100% know. There will probably be some sort of inciting incident that makes everybody realize, okay, this is really, really serious. But you can always take them to their primary care physician and have a cognitive assessment done. Now, we're going to get into POA and all that a little bit later, but I didn't have POA and I just called the doctor. I was taking her to her appointment. I called the doctor. I said, hey, don't have medical power of attorney, but I'm bringing mom in for an appointment, and I want to let you know that we're very concerned that she is in cognitive decline. Would you please help us? The minute she sat in the room, the doctor came in and asked her what year it was, and mom said it was 1945. And at that point, we were off to the races, and we were able to start a whole series of tests and all those sorts of things. Ideally, a loved one with Alzheimer's, whatever kind of dementia, and I'm going to give an explanation really quick because everybody always gets that confused. Dementia is not a disease. Dementia is a symptom. So you can have Parkinson's dementia, which is dementia caused from Parkinson's. You can have Alzheimer's dementia caused from Alzheimer's. Mom has vascular dementia and Alzheimer's dementia, which is called mixed dementia, which means that the symptom is dementia and the cause, in her case, is heart disease and Alzheimer's disease. So those two, right? A lot of people get very confused about that. I used to be very confused about that, but the Alzheimer's is the disease and dementia is actually a symptom. So I hope that helps clear that part of it up. But if you're at all concerned about their cognitive health, I would get them into just their regular primary care doctor. I would not make a big deal about it. They probably need to go in for a checkup anyway. And you definitely want to start slowly getting some testing done. But even if you can't do that, the bigger and more important question is, are they safe to live alone? Are they safe to be driving? Can they live independently? And if the answer is no, then you need to start the steps to keep them safe, dry, and warm. That's been our kind of guiding force this entire time. We couldn't fix it. We wanted to make it as easy as we could for her, but we had to make sure she was safe, dry, and warm. So I hope that answers your question. So this is kind of along that same line. I helped care for my grandparents who had dementia when I was a teen young adult. I would like to know when you knew she was struggling with symptoms and how you came to the decision to move her to memory care. Now, as my own parents age and they refuse to talk about their own journeys with their parents, I am curious how to handle it as the one making the decisions. So going back to what I said earlier, get their doctor involved. First of all, what an amazing grandchild to have been involved in their care. That's huge. I commend you for that. I also can understand why they would be very fearful. And if you have a parent that is not being forthcoming about their challenges and they're not willing to go in for cognitive testing and they're really, really resistant, I think the more resistant they are, the more likely it is that they know something is up. Again, I'm not a psychiatrist. This is just what I know about human behavior, right? I am a mom, so I think you learn a lot of things. But most of the time, we resist something and we get angry when people bring it up when we're afraid. So I think understand where they're coming from. A lot of you ask questions about what do I do if they are just refusing to get tested? They're just refusing to get help. And the reason they're refusing is because they know something's wrong. And they're terrified, especially in your parents' case, right? Because they saw their parents go through it, of getting that diagnosis. Because what does that mean? And denial does weird things to your brain. So if they are being very reluctant to go, I would find out when they have, if you can, find out when they have their next regular visit with their doctor, call their doctor, tell them your concerns. You can also ask for cognitive testing if they end up in the emergency room for any reason. That was one of the things that we learned after the fact that is kind of fascinating. You can ask to speak with a social worker if they're in the ER. I hope they're not in the ER, but a lot of times ER visits and realizing they can't drive and the, maybe small fire in the kitchen, like all of these things tend to happen around the same time. So you can ask for a social worker. You can explain to them your concerns. I think the biggest mistake we made, especially in the beginning, was trying to figure it out on our own. There are so many resources available, and it is a little bit like playing a video game. Once we started talking to her primary care physician about the cognitive issues, then all of these little things started opening up. And it really started with mom, with her being unable to handle her finances. And so be looking for those kinds of signs. But I think getting things in place that make it possible for you to help as much as you can. Things like getting power of attorney, which is a good idea anyway. Like my husband and I both already have our sons, or one of our sons is like primary and then going down the line for power of attorney. There's a lot of reasons why you might become incapacitated in life. So having a POA is really important, even if you're nowhere near being worried about dementia and all of those types of things. So maybe start there with the conversations. Get power of attorney, and then as things happen, which they may happen very, very quickly, at least you have that piece of things in place. And it could be that it's just old age or whatever, but we all need to be on the same page. A lot of you will tell me they're just refusing. And I get that, but when it comes to things like driving, where them just refusing and yet they're not safe to drive and they could kill themselves or someone else, that becomes a very big motivator. You can find out from your local police department. It depends on what area you're in. Can you call the police if you're worried about their driving? Like there's all these resources that you can avail yourself of, but you have to know the right people to ask. I'm not an expert in your individual area. Like I said, for us, we started with our primary care doctor, who then referred us to a palliative care practice. And that's where mom had all of her cognitive testing done. And then once we had a diagnosis, we were able to slowly work from there. And I'm saying it as though it was the easiest thing in the world. It was not the easiest thing in the world. It was very, very complex and very, very challenging. And they're going to be in denial. And I have yet to talk to a family member where the parent in question has been like, you know what? I really think I might have dementia, and I think I need to go in for cognitive testing, and then I think I need to figure out what it looks like for me to not live independently because I'm not safe, and here are the car keys. I'm sure that happens for somebody, maybe if you got a diagnosis really, really early on. But if the diagnosis isn't happening until everybody notices something is wrong, then your loved one is already starting to have their brain play tricks on them. And in my experience, it's very unlikely that you're going to get them to take any action on this whatsoever. So it could end up that they're in the emergency room and it's a social worker that makes the decision for you. If you can do some legwork in advance, if you suspect this might be the case, maybe figure out what would you do. Is there an assisted living that you like that has a good memory care? Could you start going to places, at least having an idea of what the options are? Some of my best resources were the conversations I had when I would go tour various assisted living facilities. Even when mom didn't end up going to that particular facility, those people were just a wealth of information. So just don't expect them to volunteer for any of this. I've just never heard of it happening. I'm sure it happens for somebody, but I've never heard of it. So navigate it the best you can, but you have to keep them safe, dry, and warm, and you have to keep them from being a danger to others. So yeah, I wish I could help everybody with that, but I can't. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. So this is a great question. How can we best support the caretaker in a way that actually feels supportive? And I've thought about this a lot recently as I have been struggling with some friendships and some people that just kind of don't understand. I would say understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And in the movies, first of all, can we talk about The Notebook for a minute? I loved that movie. I loved the performances in it, whatever. What a ridiculous portrayal of Alzheimer's disease. Like completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. That is not what it's like, just so you know. Not in any way, shape, or form. And not only that, but every individual who has dementia, things play out differently. My mom, for example, knows who everybody is. That has not been something that she has lost with her dementia. With vascular dementia, what they're far more likely to lose is functional ability. So she knows who everybody is, but she struggles to remember how to wash her hands. like what's the order of operations for things. She struggles to remember how to eat. She struggles to remember how to use the bathroom, but she knows who everyone is. So this idea that it's like amnesia really bothers me as a loved one, because it's so not like that. And then as they progress through the stages, typically what happens is they lose their ability to walk, they lose their ability to speak, they lose their ability to eat, and it's a very bad end of life, a really bad end of life. So this sort of romantic portrayal as though they're an amnesia victim, and then sometimes they have glimmers. Now, I have definitely seen that happen, and people that are very advanced dementia who really don't know who anybody is can have days where they have clarity and they remember people. But every single dementia patient that I have ever met, and there's been quite a few now, both with two different assisted livings and her memory care facility, it's just different in every circumstance. As far as how did we know when it was time to move her to memory care, you will not have to make that decision. If she's already in an assisted living facility, which was the case with Mom, they will let you know when it's time to move them to memory care. There was all throughout, like when we moved Mom here, and even when she was in her other facility, should we or shouldn't we? Like, you don't want to move them too soon because they do tend to have a bit of a decline. A move is stressful no matter what, but it's kind of if you'll know when you know. And in our case, and in most of the families that I've talked to, you don't have to worry about making that decision, because the nursing staff at the assisted living facility will notice that it's not working. In Mom's case, she was getting very disoriented. She was wandering a lot in the middle of the night, and it was very dangerous. Staff were having a hard time. She just was not, she needed to be in an area that was much more secure. But I think that's, as far as moving them to memory care, the facility, if it's a good facility, and we'll get into that, will help you guide that decision. So don't worry too much about that. They will tell you, in my view and in my experience, when it's time. Okay, I love this question: how to support yourself as the carer. And I think that I am very, very fortunate because Mom is in a wonderful facility. By the way, let me say on that, I voted today. If you are not voting, for people that understand that Social Security and Medicaid are not entitlement programs, you need to be, because if Mom did not have Social Security, and for many people, if they didn't have Medicaid, I don't know what the answers would be. I am not at all equipped to care for Mom here in our home. You're talking about a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day proposition. You're talking about a lot of physical work. You're talking about making sure you have a home that it can facilitate that loved one. This idea, again, going back to the Notebook as a terrible example, is like they're just this tender and gentle person that is going to sit and read and knit and just keep you company all day long. None of that tracks with my experience. We have to put in her apartment, we have to put dish soap under lock and key because she will open it and spill it and try to eat it. She can't have any, she tried to put nail polish remover wipes on her face. We had to get rid of all of that sort of stuff. Everything is a danger. From day to day, you don't know what is going to be a danger. And then there's the fact that she is completely incontinent at this point. Showering her requires 2 people. It is a massive undertaking. Everything is very laborious, and I am not trained or equipped to manage that. Now, what you see a lot of people doing is they'll do like a hybrid where the person lives in their home and then they have caregivers that come in. Caregiving in the home, professional caregivers, is wildly expensive. So I guess what I'm saying is carers that are people that are taking care of their loved one with dementia in their own home, that is much, much, much harder than what I am doing. I'm not trying to compare the two. We feel very blessed that Mom has the resources to be able to afford her care. But as far as what advice do I have to support myself as the carer, I recently had a huge epiphany about this, about mitigating competing priorities. And what I mean by that is your loved one with dementia cannot always take top priority. you have lots of top priorities, right? You have your relationships, you have your own children. Some of you are still raising your kids while you're dealing with this. You have your own health and well-being, you have your friendships, you have your job, you have all of these different things that at any given moment might need to be the top priority. I cannot, nor should you, put your loved one with dementia as always the most important priority. Sometimes they are, sometimes they have to be. But we're constantly, like the plate spinner in the Ed Sullivan Show, running up and down the line, trying to make sure that we are meeting the moment with the right priorities in that moment. So as a carer, I had to accept that some days, even when it would be in mom's best interest for me to go visit, for example, I don't have it in me. I don't have the emotional bandwidth. I'm physically exhausted. And instead of going to see mom and spending what always turns into 2, 3, 4 hours with her, I need to take myself to a movie. Or maybe I need to be here and getting my work done. Or maybe I need to be spending some time with my husband. Or maybe I need to, fly to where one of my sons is and spend some time with them. She cannot be the number one priority of every day. And that might sound shocking for some of you to hear, but there is going to come a time when mom is gone and I will still have to have a life that I am happy with and that I'm happy with my relationships and all the other things. If I sacrificed everything else in my life in order to only focus on taking care of her, the result would not be good. It wouldn't be good for me. It wouldn't be good for her because I would be resentful of the situation. It certainly wouldn't be good for my kids. And when mom is gone, what's on the other side would be very challenging for me to kind of recover from that. So I'm constantly working as the carer to make sure that I am also focusing on my other priorities. And honestly, like I said, some days those decisions are made for me, but a lot of days I can decide. And just because I feel this sense of obligation to go, I have to stop and ask myself, do I really feel like this is something that I can go and do? I don't feel like I answered. I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to go back and answer this because I asked the question, then I got off on a tangent. I knew this was going to be a challenge to get through. The question was, how can we best support the caretaker in a way that actually feels supportive? I got into talking about how it's a marathon, not a sprint. So understand, and then I started talking about the notebook. Okay, now I'm coming back to where I was in my... This is not something that's going to resolve in a couple of months. It's possible, if you have a friend or a loved one that is taking care of someone with dementia, that this will last for years. So settle into that. Understand that it's not like a crisis, it's an ongoing chronic issue. It's very different dealing with a one-time crisis, and maybe there's one-time crises within it, right? Now, maybe your mom has broken her hip or your dad, or this has happened or that has happened. But in between like the big dramatic moments, you have a lot of days that just feel like Groundhog Day, where I know that most days I am going to go see her and this is what it's going to look like. And you're on call, like you're waiting around for something to happen. And it will be day after day after day after day. And plus you're dealing with this grief situation as the person that you've always known is you're losing them more and more every time you go and visit, and trying to, handle all of the priorities and the actual time requirement that it takes. And it's a lot. And so we're not going to get over it fast. I think, especially in America, we like people to be over things in 4 to 6 weeks. And if the person who's your friend is living in the same town with that person, and certainly if they're living in their house, this is an ongoing thing. So I would say, allow them to live their life, be in their life, give them, ask about it, see if there's, and maybe don't ask if you can do anything to help because always the answer is going to be no, but, offer practical things. Can I take you out to lunch? I feel like caregiving must be exhausting. Can I take you out to lunch? I think that is wildly helpful. I also think allowing them to be flaky, allowing me to be flaky. We have yoga on Thursday nights at my neighbor's, and it was supposed to start at 8:30. I left mom's and I was just like spent. Like I'm still feeling it today. And I can't really put my finger on what the situation was. She was just very discouraged and was feeling very sorry for herself. And I was feeling frustrated that she was feeling sorry for herself. And then I was feeling mad at myself because I was feeling frustrated at her for feeling sorry for herself, which she has every right to do. And I texted my yoga teacher and I'm like, I can't do it. And because Linda understands what I'm going through, she didn't require some big ol' explanation. So allow your friends, your family who are caring for someone with any kind of chronic illness to be flaky. Let us be flaky. Let us just say, I'm not going to make it today. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe just give them the freedom whenever you make a plan to say, I understand that this plan may not happen because of something with mom or your own personal strength or whatever. Just, give them as many passes as is humanly possible and have a tremendous amount of grace. I think that's the best rule of thumb, no matter what someone is going through. So yeah, that's how I would answer that question. I am so sorry that we just went woo, woo, woo. If you ever were worried that I was AI, hopefully that little tangent helped you to know, no ma'am, you are not AI. You are a real, very, very flawed person. Okay, how much do you pay for assisted living? Do they do a good job caring for your mom? I've heard horror stories of neglect, so I'm hesitant to go that route with my mom, but I feel the burden of possibly having to do the caregiving myself. Okay, I already touched on why doing the caregiving yourself. I'm not going to tell anybody what they should do, but really think about that. Really think about doing it yourself. Really think about the statistics that talk about how caregivers, 40% of the time, the caregiver dies before the person that is in need of care. And that is not just spouses, that's also children. So think through what you're taking on. How much does it cost? We are paying $6,600 a month. Here in Georgia, that's about average. We're in kind of the middle range. That you can find places that are slightly cheaper. You can definitely find places that are more expensive. But that is for a studio apartment, 24-hour care, bathing, medication, all of her meals, all of those types of things. Different states are a lot more expensive. Arizona, in fact, where we moved her from, was going to be almost double that for the same level of care. It was one of the motivations in moving her. There's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not actually thrilled that it's a complicated reality. Let me just say that. It's a complicated reality. Medicare doesn't pay for anything until and unless they are on hospice, in which case Medicare pays for additional nursing care and some durable medical goods like her oxygen, her wheelchair. She already had like a walker, but if she needed that. And then there's a whole team of people in hospice that are amazing. We have a chaplain, we have a social worker, and all of that is covered by Medicare. But the cost of her actual room and board and care, none of it's covered by Medicare. Now, Medicaid will kick in and cover some of that if it's a facility that accepts Medicaid. The facility where mom is does not, and they actually cannot have more than $5,000 in assets in order to qualify for Medicaid. So it's a ridiculous program. You really have to be impoverished to qualify for Medicaid. So the way that they're cutting things in Medicaid right now is completely obscene. Some of you may have heard RFK Jr. talking about how he thought it was ridiculous that people were being paid to care for their loved ones when they used to do that for free. And when you think about in terms of someone with dementia who's living in your home and you have to quit your full-time job and you're going to take over the caregiving for this person, that tiny bit of money that you're able to get from the federal government if your loved one is on Medicaid, to say that that's how somehow milking the system is just, you can go Google it and make your own decisions on that, but it's absolutely crazy making to me. It is exorbitantly expensive. If you're looking at full-time in the home care, you're talking about anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000 a month or more. So that's why I say a lot of people have, if they do take care of their loved one in their homes, they'll do like a hybrid. We're very fortunate that mom is in a great place. In terms of the neglect situation, I have come to decide that there are good places and there are bad places. Mom has been in a bad place. The bad places are horrific. And the bad places really you just know. You just walk in and you just know. Or maybe something was a good place and they've had a change in management and all of a sudden now it's a bad place. So the best places also have bad seasons. They have a bunch of people quit at the same time. There's something that happens in management, or they're just struggling for some reason. For a while, her memory care had a really horrible director, and he's since been replaced. And I love the woman that's doing it now, and I'm seeing some really positive change. But you have to be there. To be honest with you, I am there more to provide oversight at this point than I am to provide comfort to mom. She knows when I'm there, but if I'm there one day and then I visit the next day, she doesn't know if I've been gone 1 day or 3 weeks. Time is very, very different for someone suffering from dementia. So I'm really there to provide oversight, to provide going in and seeing, is her laundry being done? Is her bathroom clean? Is her bedding been changed? Does it look like she's been offered enough water? You have to understand that mom is vulnerable like a toddler right now. If she's thirsty, she cannot again, going back to her type of dementia is functional. She has cups and she has water in her room. She's thirsty. Her brain cannot manage the process of go get a cup, go to the faucet, fill the cup with water. That is not available to her. So if they don't offer her water, she is not going to drink. If they don't offer her food, she is not going to eat. If they don't clean her up after she's gone to the bathroom, she is not going to be clean. So when you look at it that way, the enormity, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm just trying to explain the reality of the situation, which is so different than people know. By the time they are at the phase where mom is, you're talking completely incontinent, unable to, and she can eat on her own, but if she doesn't have like, I'm hungry, so she's stocked with like Cliff Bars and Boost drinks and all this kind of stuff. She will not walk to her refrigerator in her apartment and get those things for herself. Her brain no longer functions that way. So when you think about how you're relying on these caregivers, we are so blessed. There are a few that I have issues with, but for the most part, the caregivers adore my mom. I have made it a habit to show up at all different times of day and all different days of the week. So they never really know when I'm coming. I will also like overhear how they talk to mom when they don't think that I'm around. You have to be there to see it with your own eyes. I am thrilled that we were able to move her here closer to me, because it was really, really bothering me that I just felt like she wasn't, people weren't seeing her as much as I would like. That was a me thing. I understood that. But now I am there either every day, every other day. I'm trying to get down to like 3 to 4 times per week. But some days, I just get that sense. I'll just pop in. Maybe I only pop in for 15 minutes to do a wellness check, right? But I'm just laying eyeballs on her and I'm making sure she's safe, dry, and warm. And that is the focus. So the other thing I would say is if you think that putting her in an assisted living, or them, in an assisted living facility means that you won't have to have oversight, oh golly, you still have to have oversight. You're still fielding a lot of phone calls. You're still having to be, partner with her care team to make a lot of decisions. But I will say her caregivers know her better than I do at this point. They are more aware of her habits, what clothes she likes to wear now. I recently walked in, and Rebecca, who's one of my favorites where mom is, I walked in and she said, you have got to get her some new nightgowns. For a while, mom was going through this thing where she was okay wearing like her patio dresses, her muumuus to bed. And then she just got out of that and she wanted nightgowns. Well, because she has a lot of accidents in the night, even with her depends and everything, she was going through a lot of nightgowns. So, okay, duly noted, like Rebecca was like, girl, you got to get your mama some nightgowns. So I went to Kohl's, I bought several there. I found some at TJ Maxx, and we got her stocked so that she had 7 new nightgowns. So even if it was the middle of the night, she had a fresh nightgown she could put on and all those types of things. I really rely on those caregivers to communicate with me. They're the ones that are telling me, listen, she really needs this, or listen, this thing is going on and I think we need to do something about it. And if I didn't have open communication with them, I would really feel like I was letting mom down. So you do have to have someone in the town where she is that can provide regular oversight and is truly making sure that your mom or dad is getting the best care they can. Okay, I just feel like this video is, I don't want this video to be super gloomy. I really, really don't, you guys, because I have done a couple of videos where I talked about this. I did a short about it, I think, but there is still a lot of light and a lot of happiness when I'm with mom. We have this little kind of thing we do when I go visit. I hang out with her in the afternoons. I take her to dinner at her assisted living facility, and then we go to her room, sit in her recliner. I put on a Hallmark movie, anything Lacey Chabert she loves. She's seen all of them 15,000 times. That's okay. And I just spend time with her. I'll hold her hand. I'll tell her that I love her. Like, we still have a lot of good, happy moments, but also there's a lot of work involved. So, yeah, I just don't want it to be like, it's tough. It is a tough season. There is no getting around that. But I'm also really blessed and honored that I get to spend this time with her. And the fact that I know sitting here that she's 10 minutes up the road, as opposed to when she lived in Arizona and it was a plane ride and I never knew day to day. And I always kind of felt like I wanted to see her with my own eyes. It's a weird thing to say, but we're making the best of a not great situation. And I'm honored that I get to be here with her. And yeah, I don't know. Is it hard? Yes. Is this like shockingly worse than I thought it was going to be? Yes. Am I sorry that I'm the one doing it? 100% no. And I'm grateful for every moment that I get with my mom. Whew, that's a lot. That is a lot. There are so many questions, y'all. I can't even, let's move into the whole like hospice conversation a little bit more. Because one of you is asking me if I have ever used or have ever considered using an end-of-life doula. I think if mom had a disease where she was more aware, I would do that in a heartbeat. The reality, and I had the thought the other day, now that she's on hospice, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Mom does not know that she is in the last phase of her life. And on hospice, you can't get on hospice unless you have two doctors can say that it is expected that you will live less than 6 months. That's kind of, no one knows for sure, but you need that. It's actually very challenging to get on hospice with just a dementia diagnosis. Mom also has some heart diagnosis that is what enabled her to go on to hospice. But it's tricky. And we all know that she is in the last months, probably, maybe as much as a year of her life. She does not know that, though. And when I visit her on any given day, there are some days where she wants to look at real estate listings. And so you know what we do? We look on my phone. We look at real estate listings, like where she is living in a reality where she is for a short amount of time and she's going to move. Who cares? Like you meet them where you are. I've talked about that in other videos, not where you are, where they are. You meet them where they are. So a death doula to me would be more helpful if it was someone who knew that they were dying. Because mom doesn't know that she's dying, even when she talks to the chaplain, who I adore, he's like the funniest guy. He has a dog. It's a whole thing. They don't talk about that unless she wants to talk about it, because she doesn't know, she doesn't understand that she's nearing the end of her life. So I haven't. Also, though, I just got done reading that New York Times best-selling book written by the death doula. The name of it, I don't know right now. I'll put it down here. Excellent read. I'm fascinated with maybe even someday being a death doula. I know that sounds, I probably wouldn't do that, but I could see myself doing that, is my point. I have looked into this a lot. I think it is a growing service that is being offered. I love everything about it. I do think it's an honor and a privilege to usher someone out of their earthly body. Just is like incredible to me. I think it's an honor and a privilege to be there when life comes into the world. And I think it's an honor and a privilege to be there when it leaves. And, the 10 years that I was a pastor, I certainly was able to see that out and see it happen in real time. But for this diagnosis, for now, I don't think that would be the best call. I might change my mind on that. I don't think I will. That's a lot of questions. You guys asked, like I am looking at like page after page after page of wildly specific questions. And I so wish I could get to all of them. I am going to put some resources down in the description box for you guys, to a couple of books that have been really helpful, to some content creators that will be really helpful, and have the conversations down in the comments section. As I said before, every single person with dementia is having a different experience, and every caregiver for someone with dementia is having a different experience. So it's very challenging to say, well, if this happens, then this and this and this. There is not a logical order of operations. I want there to be, but there just isn't. And so if you feel like you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants, it's because you are. But as they told me at the Alzheimer's line, which is my absolute favorite resource that I will definitely put the number for, I'll probably put it across the screen too. Free, amazing. They will give you so much great advice. She said, you know what? Whatever decision you make is the right decision, because no one has an actual path to this is exactly what you should do when your loved one has a dementia diagnosis. No one can answer that for you, and not even the experts can answer that for you. So take it a day at a time. Don't beat yourself up if you make a decision that later you have to change. Maybe you put them in a facility that wasn't right. Maybe you place them with a doctor that wasn't right. Maybe, a million different things. You're human. You're going to make missteps. But if you're watching this video, and certainly if you've gotten to this point as I've blathered on, I know that your heart is for your loved one to have the best outcome possible. So I have full confidence in your ability, and I know you're going to make the right decisions. Okay, hang in there. Please be kind in the comments. Be there for each other. And I'm leaving to go on a trip tomorrow, and I'm definitely going to vlog it. And I hope you guys enjoy every minute. And yes, I did talk to her hospice nurse. We're good to leave town for a few days. And I obviously am in deep need of a break. Whatever you're doing today, even in the midst of the struggle, I hope you're finding joy. Subscribe if you didn't already. And as always, this video is being brought to you by my wonderful patrons, whom I adore. You can join us over there if you'd like. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.